Hello guys and welcome to this second video of our course of psycholinguistics. So in here we are going to discuss the other components of the pyramid of Gagné. Um, Remember that in the first four we have all these different ones that were more related to behavior and let's say responses that are not necessarily so mentally challenging, let's say complex in terms of reasoning or logic. And here we start discussing something more related to cognitive or mental development or effort somehow, right? So let's go with the next one, that is multiple discrimination learning. Okay, so here we're going to deal with a way in which the individual is going to learn to make a number, several, right, different identifying responses to many different stimuli. The thing is that these stimuli may resemble one another, they may be similar to one another, and they may have, let's say, similarities in a greater or lesser degree, yes, somehow. Sometimes the connections between these stimuli may interfere with one another, but that's it. Basically, so what is it? The possibility of between, let's say, a range or really similar stimuli to identify the ones that are somehow requiring to have a particular response. For example, being able to identify what is the response that you require to have when you listen to a ring. Yes? How many rings can you listen as a human? Yes? In terms of our daily activities or in terms of our usual practices, right? We can listen, for example, to a ring in the school in order to know that the class has to be changed. We can listen to a phone ringing. I know that nowadays, especially let's say in our cell phones, in our smartphones, we have the possibility of play a song or a very specific sound. But especially in the past, let's say we have rings, literal rings for the telephones. Yes, the home phone number had that ring. Yeah. We can find rings, for example, when somebody is getting at the door. Yes, and I have the bell that is going to be ringed, and I go to open it or something like that. Even I have rings for the intercom. Yes, for example, if you live in a conjunto cerrado, yes, in a block of buildings or in a closed environment. That also sometimes rings for letting you know that somebody's trying to enter your house, is going to visit you, or wants to, requires you for whatever. We can have rings for example, the alarm clock. Yes, again, you can select a song or some little birds or whatever. But usually it used to be a ring like that, and that's it. We can have, for example, rings for the guy who's selling ice cream. There are a lot of different rings. I just gave you some examples from the top of my mind right now. So the possibility of knowing how to react to each one of those, that probably we don't realize that because we have learned the difference so well that nowadays we don't have a confusion at all. Yes. That is what is somehow understood as multiple discrimination learning. So being able to from these really, really similar stimuli to contextualize immediately, mentally. I mean, you don't spend. I mean, there's not the slight possibility that you listen to the ring in the school and you say, okay, I can sleep 5 minutes more. No, you immediately discriminate that that is not the alarm clock. Yes. Or that you listen to the alarm, the fire alarm in a building because there was an earthquake or there was a fire, and then you say, oh, I'm going to buy that ice cream. No, you don't have that sort of reaction, right? So that mental process that is a little bit more elevated, well, a little bit more, no, much more elevated, it is what we understand as multiple discrimination learning. Yes? And that was just the example of the ring. I mean, you can sort of have a lot of different discrimination learning with something so simple as the vocabulary that you use, how formal you speak, your tone of voice, your somehow body language. Well, a lot of different things. Yes, depending of who you're talking to, you discriminate your language and you're going to use it in different ways. So if you're talking to your teacher, to your mom, to your girlfriend, to the president of the republic, to somebody who's your friend, etc. Right? So towards the same stimulus your response is going to be different. Okay? So that is the discrimination. Now, this has a lot to do, of course, with Oswald, yeah, in which you require to have connection between somehow former ideas in order to, let's say, put together a certain response. Yes? So that's what we have there. Now, the next stage is one that is really, really important, guys, and is the one of concept learning. So how do you learn the concept, or what is a concept, right? Again, we will discuss this next week, in which we're going to work with Mentifacts. But well, for now, I can tell you that a concept is a knot of propositions, right? And basically a lot of different propositions that are chained together and that form some sort of a network. Okay. Anyway, I will expand on that next week. But how do you know that you know a concept? Okay. So first of all, a concept has some essential characteristics, right? Some characteristics that no other concept have, that no other thing has, right? And that is probably the most difficult to get. Yes, because even though we think that many things are unique, every time that we're going to define a concept, we see that there are many things that get, that are really similar to one another. Yes. So make this exercise. For example, you say, okay, I'm going to give the concept of dog. Yeah. And people say, okay, well, a dog is an animal with a tail for legs, and is domestic, and that's it. Yes. And I say, okay, but we have the cat that is also four-legged, has a tail, and is domestic. And let's imagine that you say that the dog was furry. Well, the cat as well. You see? So if you define a lot of different things, it's going to have that problem, right? So you need to find certain things that are unique for that concept. Let's say the barking. Oh, okay, that is sort of unique because there are some other species that also have it, but that was the example. So a concept requires to have, remember that, some unique characteristics, right? What else do you know to learn a concept? You need to know that there is an general category to which that concept belongs. Yes? So, that concept is not isolated, it is part of something more general. Yes? So let's continue with the dog. Let's say that what is the higher category to which the dog is part of? So if we want to talk about, let's say, those sort of animals, we can say, for example, that he's part of the domestic animals, yes, or that he's part of the somehow cans, yes, the canid type, in which we have the wolf, in which we have some other animals that are similar in taxonomically speaking to it. Yes, so there's always like a higher category in which the concept is over there located. Yes, it is not only, I mean, the concept is not isolated, it's part of something bigger. Yes. What else do you need to know a concept? Well, you need to know that normally a concept has some subcategories, yes, or some subtypes. So we have the concept in the middle, the general characteristics, sorry, not the general characteristics, the unique characteristics, the category to which it belongs, and down there, right, we have the subtypes. So what subtypes of dogs do we have? Well, we can classify them by races, for example, a pug, a French poodle, a German shepherd, a Creole dog, or something like that, by race. Or we can classify them by size, something as elementary as big, small, medium, little, right? Or we can divide them as, I don't know, maybe uses, professions, like from guiding dog for the blind people. It just has a specific name. I just forgot it right now. Yeah, but in Spanish is lazarillo, right? The ones who help blind people to go around. In English, I just forgot it. Or maybe those dogs that are merely domestic and keep company to people at the house, or shepherd's dogs that help with the cattle and the sheep, or let's say police dogs that can help you with detection of bombs, drugs, stuff like that. Yes. So the criteria of classification is up to you, but in order to know a concept, you are supposed to know that it's supposed to have some subtypes. Yes. And finally, in order to get to know a concept, you need like a fourth ability or category, that is to get to know or to understand that there are similar things to the concept that are close but that you discriminate. Yeah, so you see, you require the previous parts of the pyramid to do that. So yeah, so you know that there are wolves, you know that there are hyenas, maybe you know that there are prairie dogs, you know that there are some other animals that are quite similar to the dog, but that they somehow are not exactly the dog, right? Again, next week we're going to do a mentifact, and I can explain you that graphically, and maybe that is going to be easier somehow. But you see, we require 4 things: identifying the upper category, the subcategory, the unique characteristics, and the things that look like it but are not. Yes. So this is a really complex thing, right? Like learning a concept is something really advanced, mentally speaking. Yes. And we will do an exercise with that next week. There are certain things that you think that you understand and you don't. Yes. So if you're unable to provide one of those 4 things, 4 components that I mentioned, it means that you don't understand the concept. Yes, it means that you understand it partially or not at all. Yes. So try to define, for example, something that you are supposed to know, like what is didactics or what is pedagogy, for example, right? So do you know the essential characteristics? Do you know the subclasses or the types of pedagogies and didactics? Do you know where does it belong? And do you know certain things that are similar but are not? Yes. So do you know the difference between didactics and pedagogy, for example? Or do you know the difference between ludics and didactics? Yes, because for example, students say like that, teacher, why don't we do something more ludic or more didactic? And they say it like indistinctly, right? So food for thought in that case. So this part that I extended a lot in because it was really essential. has to do with being able to learn concepts, right? And of course, this is very Oswald-like, yes, in which we require to have different items from different places, put them together, also differentiating, separating, for example, knowing that the wolves and the hyena are different from the dog, yes, all that, we need to put all that together. Very well. Next one is going to be actually the same, but and probably more complex, but much shorter, right? Why? Because we have the principal learning. Yes, and this principal learning is basically being able to get to know a whole group of concepts. Yes, a whole chain of concepts. You understand that by somehow learning about thermodynamics and movement and somehow certain reactions, and just think about any other concept, and then with all these concepts you are able to understand physics, right? Let's say that you understand the concept of multiplication, the concept of division, the concept of addition and subtraction, and then you understand the concept of arithmetics. I am super simplifying this, okay? Hopefully no mathematician is watching this at some point. But let's say that yes, with this you understand, or you have the general idea of what somehow arithmetics are, right? Let's say that you understand the concept of what could be a half, a third, a fifth, a quarter, right? And then you understand the principles of fractions, for example, and so on and so forth. Okay, so basically the principal learning is to be able to identify, exchange, or something like that, concepts, associate, exclude, so you understand something more general, right? Because you're able to associate or somehow exchange the concept thing. And finally, the last one, but easiest actually, is problem solving. That is exactly that. You have a problem, you have a situation that you're required to solve, and by using the principles, associating the concepts, being able to discriminate, being able to associate verbality, orders, reactions, being able to coordinate your mind with your movements, and your movements include your words, of course, being able to understand general signals and all that, well, you are able to solve the problem. Yes? What is solving a problem? Well, something so simple, apparently, like tying up your shoes. Yes, that requires signal learning, that require psychomotor skills, that require certain concept things, and then you finally were able to somehow tie your shoes, something like that, to a much more complex problems, such as creating a theory or doing a hypothesis or doing research, etc. Right? Now, for solving the problem, and that is going to be part of the exercise that we're going to do, you require sometimes all of the former stages, yes, and sometimes you require just a couple, yes, or one or two, right? So it's important that you know that, yes, that it's ascending and increasing in complexity, but not always you are going to require each and every one of the former types of learning. Yes, we know that the first learning, signal learning, is the most simplistic, and the final one, problem solving, is the most difficult, or the most complex, not difficult. But they are not prerequisites sometimes. Yes, you can do some of those without doing others, right? So important that you know that. Again, I know it's sort of tricky. It seems to be very intangible, and that makes the explanation a little bit more confusing. I am aware of it, so do not worry if you still feel a little bit lost. I know it's a set of difficult concepts, especially for you that are not necessarily connected with psychology, and that you only took one of these subjects before a long time ago. But do not worry. Anyway, this is a classification thing, and the idea is do we understand some generalities of it. Okay? So, guys, assignment for this week. We're going to the slide number 35 and take a look at the example. It says, think of 3 lessons in which you can use Gagné's hierarchy so your students solve these problems. Imagine you are an English teacher, but you don't have to imagine. And you need to produce some of these learnings in your class. Yes, you need to make sure that, let's say, 3 different topics. Well, I think the topic is that it sounds so isolated, okay, but it is more or less the idea. 3 topics, 3 ideas, 3 things that you can teach in class that are going to guarantee somehow that your student is able in the future to solve these problems. Yes? So, in this case, let me help you with the first one a little bit, at least with one. We have 5 different problems. The first one, successfully asking for and giving complicated directions, right? Not the typical easy ones like in front of, no, but something that in which you need to cross a street and then wait for something and then see a corner or something like that, right? So that's your student is going to need to solve that problem in the future, right? So how can you guarantee that he or she is able to do that? Well, very simple. You're required to give at least prepositions of place, right? So that is what I mentioned to the lessons. Yes. So you're required to do that, right? To provide some prepositions of place and explain some of the difference, etc., etc., right? But that is not the only thing. No, that's why I mentioned 3 lessons. So think about the other ones. Yes, think about the other ones. So for each one of these problems that we have over here, the idea is that you are supposed to propose these different things. So what I ask you to do is to work in groups. I'm going to allow 5 people for this time because I know that there are 5 different things over here, so maybe each one can take one. It's up to you. Well, 5 people maximum, 4, 3, 2, or 1. And what do you have to do? Take a look at the problem, write the 3 lessons. When I say lessons are like the topics that can be grammar topics or can be skills or sub-skills, such as, somebody can put over there skimming, for example, or scanning, and that will be it, okay? So you mention those and you explain why. Why do you think that those things are going to guarantee somehow, or at least facilitate, that the student is able to solve those problems, okay? Something short. It can be the 3 topics, abilities, whatever. An explanation of, 2 lines, 3 lines. It's up to you, or maybe you can put 1 topic, 1 line, 1 topic, 1 line, 1 topic, 1 line. It's up to you, right? And you do it in that way. And you're going to do it with all these 5 different problems. I already gave you a freebie. You are going to require, for sure, prepositions of place for the first one. And we will see the other one. So here we have over here, successfully presenting a job interview, applying to a scholarship for a university located in an English-speaking country, successfully using English to research information on other subjects in school or university. Yes, so imagine that you are going to make sure that your student knows how to use English so he can research on the internet about math or social studies or biology, whatever, right? Or reading and using manuals for a determined electronic device or software. Imagine that the manual is in English, so what does he require to understand it and using it, right? So that's it. That is going to be the assignment for this week. Everybody has the same one. I mean, you only get together in groups of 5 people, and everybody like answers everything, right? So remember that we are thinking backwards in this case. Normally, we as teachers like are given topics in schools. Okay, this semester or this year you have to teach present simple, past simple, prepositions of place, irregular verbs, or something like that. We're giving contents, and then when our students tell us like, okay, how am I going to use that? So we start thinking, okay, what is the application of this? So I'm giving you the reverse side now. Yes, I'm giving you practical things. Yes, and you have to think about what of the theoretical knowledge that you normally give is essential for this. Yes. So let's do this. Please avoid some basic things like learning English. Yes, or learning basic grammar rules. Yeah. That's. I mean, I understand that that's something like obvious in there, so it's not necessary to say it. Talking about some more specific things, yes, such as the one that I mentioned, prepositions of place, or I don't know, certain grammar structures or some other things, right? Maybe a specific verbal tense, tag questions, I don't know, right? So think about those. The most basic ones, well, let's forget about that. And well, guys, that was it. The idea, of course, is that when you have these different things, you classify it. Yes, you classify it in one of the categories over here by Gagné. So if you say, for example, that is, I mean, most of these 3 topics that you selected can be located in concept learning, or maybe they require multiple discrimination, or maybe they require a lot of psychomotor connections in learning. Well, I don't know. Yes, you only need, in that case, after you classify it, you don't need to explain why. I mean, if you selected the correct topics and you give an explanation of why those are essential for solving the problem, well, I think I will understand clearly, without any further explanation, why you decided to classify it in concept learning, or in verbal association, or in multiple discrimination, or in signal learning, or something like that. Anyway, everything is going to end up, hopefully, if you do a good job, it's going to end up being problem solving now, because she is going to be able to present the interview, or to ask for directions, or etc. Okay? So that was it, guys. Complicated work, I guess. Let's see if I receive a lot of questions this week. Hopefully, we're able to transfer this knowledge and concepts that we have been using and work in a better way. Okay? But guys, good luck. See you around, and thanks a lot for the attention. Bye bye. Hugs.